Welcome, Marquette Greene-Scott, to the Speak USA podcast. So glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You are from a place called Iowa Colony that is how far south of Houston?
So we are about, I always look at about 30 minutes south of downtown Houston. I'm sorry, I don't know miles, but we're about 30 minutes south of downtown Houston. And I know that
That's
because
the,
that's when I go to court.
that's the way we measure it, right? All of us, we're always thinking about time. Well, I want to
Yes,
welcome our listeners and viewers to the Speak USA podcast. I'm your host, Cliff Zentgraf. Let's learn about our democracy and the actions that we can all take to make it stronger, to protect our
yes.
democracy and make it stronger. Marquetta, thank you again for joining us today. Let's do an introduction. You're a mom. You are a lawyer. You used to be a teacher. You taught math, by the way.
Yes.
I'm kind of a STEM guy in my day job, so I'd love to hear about your math, your math teaching, but you're also a city council person as well. Why don't you tell us
Yes.
about some of those things?
Okay, so as you said, I'm a mom. I have a 26-year-old daughter. I'm a wife. I have my husband and I have been married since December of 2022. So we're still newlyweds. And this is my second congressional run. So he signed up for this and it's wild, but he's
he
very
knew
supportive.
he knew what he was getting into.
I don't think he knew.
Oh well.
He knew, he
He,
knew I was a councilwoman, but the congressional run came up, but I spoke with him and my daughter before I decided to run, and they both were very encouraging to me and they're very supportive of me, so it makes it easier for me.
he was aware something was there, but maybe one of those deals that until you've lived it, you don't really appreciate it.
Yes,
So a lot of
definitely.
lot of things like that in life. What about your teaching experience? You
So
taught math.
yes, I taught high school and college mathematics. I love math. I do. I love teaching. That's why I say I'm a public servant. I still have relationships with some of my former students from high school and from college. I have relationships still with them today. And because it's just it was such a special part of my life. But I love math. So I have my undergrad is in secondary education mathematics and my master's is in mathematics.
What did you teach? You taught high school and college. What classes?
Yes. So for high school, I taught Algebra 2, I taught trig, I taught geometry. For college, I taught like college mathematics, I taught mathematics for education majors, I taught finite
Mhm.
math, I taught business calculus, and I taught trig.
Well,
And
I
I
promise you, there are not very many representatives at any level who understand trigonometry and understand calculus. I'm pretty sure that's true.
So the
I,
running joke at in law school was if we could do math, we wouldn't be in law school. And I was like, that's not
Not
true.
true, not true at all. Yeah, yeah. Well, that teaching gives you will give you a certain perspective for the rest of your life
It does.
on how things should be. And you're a lawyer now, right? So you
Yes.
went back to law
Yes.
school, and what in your practice, what kind of law are you doing?
So for myself, I primarily do family law, probate law, and a little personal injury, but I'm of counsel with Griffin Law Firm. And with that, we have commercial clients. So we do some commercial litigation and a lot of transactions.
Yeah, and I would imagine you put this to use as city councilwoman as well.
Yes. So let me just mention that I went to law school at LSU. I went to the Paul M. Bear Law Center, and my daughter was 18 months when I started law school. So
Oh
it
my
was,
gosh.
yes, yes, she was 18 months when I started law school. She was 4 when I sat for the Louisiana bar, and she was 16 when I sat for the Texas bar. So, yes, I love a challenge.
Hmm. That is, well, it's a challenge I can't fully appreciate. I have three grown children, but I'm not going to say I fully appreciate what it would take to do that. Is some persistence. You obviously
It does.
have some
Well,
persistence in order to make it through that. And so then Iowa Colony, what an interesting
yes.
name. Tell us about Iowa Colony, what it's like to be a city council person there.
So Iowa Colony, there were settlers from Iowa. That's why it's called Iowa Colony. And they used to have rice fields here and, of course, a lot of agriculture. We had cows behind in the pasture behind my house, but now they're putting a subdivision up. So the cows have been moved further north. But um, it's a growing city. I think it's the eighth fastest growing city in. Nope, I messed up. I don't remember the fastest growing. We used to be higher, but we're the eighth safest city in the state of Texas. And I think we're the 15th fastest growing. Somebody said it today, but I can't remember. But yeah, we're a fast growing city. I've been on council since 2021. When I moved here, we didn't have any stores. It was just two subdivisions basically, or two developments, and then you had your rural. And I knew the city was expanding, and I always my slogan was, I want to help the city grow smartly. And I feel like that's what we've been doing. We have businesses now. We have a Starbucks. We have a Frenchie's. I don't know if you know about Frenchie's, but we just have a Frenchie's open in
I
the
do
city.
not. And now I'm curious. Frenchie's is what
It's
exactly?
a famous chicken fried chicken restaurant here in the Houston area. And the I think the one on Scott was the original, and it was the big thing, but they've expanded, and Iowa Colony was chosen as a city. So we're excited. They had a soft opening last week, and they weren't open today, and I wanted some because the lines have been too long. But I'm waiting for them to have their grand opening. But we have a lot of businesses here that are coming here that are um and we're just excited. We're trying to make sure the city controls the growth as opposed to letting the growth control us. And that's been a big thing.
Yeah,
Um
that's so important. And of course, you're dealing with it a little bit different level, but San Antonio is growing like mad. I
yeah.
spent a lot of time in Austin, which, kind of the word on the street is that Austin did not really control its growth and has,
Yeah.
created a lot of traffic and congestion issues. So that's very, very important to do. So you're on the city council, you're running though for U.S. House District 22. Why?
Yes.
What made you decide to do that? First, maybe both times, right? I think this is you said this is your second run. I believe this is your second run for this
It,
seat.
it is. It is. So in 2024, I started running the end of 2023. So I started late, but I saw that no one was running, or there wasn't a real viable campaign. And I said, if there was body viable running, I wouldn't have run, but there wasn't. And I realized that we didn't have representation. Never saw our congressman. And again, I am a council member, so I know that we should have seen him at one of our events, but never participated in anything. I didn't feel like we had any representation. So then I started doing research into the district and the sitting congressman, and I just felt like we deserve better. I know my background. I know what I bring to the table. I have policy making experience. I'm an attorney. I understand the Constitution and the roles in government, and I just felt like I could do a better job than what we had, because we truly deserve better. And that's the motto of or the slogan for our campaign. We deserve better. It was the slogan in 24, and it's even more so the slogan in 26.
Are you So you're running for District 22. Iowa Colony is the
Yes.
side of District 22. How is the district the same as Iowa Colony? How is it different than Iowa Colony?
So, well, let me just say this. In 2024, when I ran, and today we are in 22, but as a result of the mid-decade redistricting,
Wow.
we are no longer in
Yeah.
22, we're in 14. But I decided to continue running for 22 because we had done so much work in the 24 election, and my supporters never stopped working. They continued to work, they continued to build coalitions, and their thing was she's gonna run again. So and that's how I was able to win a five-way primary without even having a runoff because of my supporters.
And
They really put in the work.
that was your first run was
Well, this
this
time
time. So you had four opponents,
I have four
and
opponents.
but now you're in, no runoff. Well,
No runoff.
congratulations for that. I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank
those
you.
crowded, those crowded races, that's not the usual outcome for the crowded
I
race.
know, and that's why I
Yeah.
have to credit my supporters because, like I said, they never stopped working, and I never left. And I told the people of Fort Bend, I said, "You all are stuck with me," and I stayed even when I didn't know if I was going to run again. I kept going. Of course, they kept inviting me to things, and I kept showing up because to me that's important. People need to know you're there. They need to know that you care and that you're listening to them. So I kept showing up. Me and my husband kept showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. 90, what's the saying? 90% of the battle is showing up or something.
Yes.
Something along those lines. I know a lot of the opportunities I've had in life came because, there was something I cared about and I kept going. And, eventually somebody looked over and said, "Who's that guy?" Keeps coming, maybe we should
Yes.
ask him to
Yes.
do something. So
Yes.
anyway, let me, let me share some thoughts off your campaign website, which
Okay.
as you can imagine, I spent some time looking at your campaign website.
Yes.
And,
Good.
and I saw several quotes that I thought were really interesting. And by the way, not just interesting, but I think compatible with the mission of our group in this podcast, which is kind of what made them stand out to me. One quote, "Bipartisanship has become taboo." Man, that is so true. Another one, "Every stance comes from facts, values, and lived experience, not
Yeah.
party lines or pressure
Mm.
from donors." Imagine that fact-based decision making,
Yeah.
what's happened to that? Um, you look at issues, you research, and you
I
decide what's
do.
best for residents and the country.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and that balance struck me. It's like, when you are a federal representative, you're watching out for your people, first of all, but
Yes.
you got to at least think a little bit about what's good for the country as a whole that's going to make us all better, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then there was one more from your campaign video: "Liberty, justice, and the power of the American example," which I'm so afraid we're losing.
We are.
We have been, Ronald Reagan's words, for heaven's sakes, "a shining light on a hill."
Mm-hmm.
I think I got that right. And, disagree or disagree with his policies, before him, I guess, after him, we have been a shining light on a hill. But then you have
Mm-hmm.
somebody like the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney give a speech in Davos and say, "We're kind of done." You know, Eh,
What?
so of all of that, these are the quotes I saw.
Mhm.
Where would you like to jump in with those quotes?
So I'm in agreement with the fact that we are losing some of that shining light. We can't say that we're an example for everyone else when we're doing the things that we're doing now. And today, yesterday's quote from the president, I was like, how can we as Christians continue to condone just the words, the anti, I don't, the Islamophobia, just all of that. We cannot, that's not what our country was built on. Our country was built on freedom of religion. It was built on a separation of church and state. And I'm a Christian woman. I'm a woman of faith, but it's not for me to impose my religious beliefs or my faith on someone else. And I think that's where we're headed. Well, I don't think, I know, I see that's where we're headed. And it's something that we're going to have to get some control over, because it's like a moving train, and it's coming off the track.
I try my hardest actually not to hear words from him, just because I don't think he's earned a spot in my brain. But of course, you can't help it. And just so that
Mhm.
our viewers and listeners know what you're talking about, it was one of the dreaded social media posts that in this case dropped an F-bomb and talked about how basically we're going to wreak destruction in
Yeah.
Iran, and
Yeah.
on Easter Sunday.
And I think that was the hardest part for me, because it was on Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. It's like, but this is who they're saying is Christ-like, and who God sent to us, and who is there. It's almost like they're the Messiah. But how can you say that when this is what he does on Easter Sunday? So,
It- it-
and then the mocking of Allah, you know, you gotta to me, I respect all religions, even if you aren't a part of a religion and you don't believe in God. I respect you, because every person has that right, and that's what our country is supposed to be about.
that's what we stand for. At the risk of making this a Sunday school class, one I think about a lot is the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I would just ask anyone who looks at him and thinks that there's a divine action underway, if this person meets those criteria. And I know everybody gets to make up their own mind, but I know
Yes,
where
yes,
my
yes.
mind is at. Uh, so it, anyway, I look at these quotes, and I think to myself, I'd vote for you. You seem pretty qualified.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like I am, and I'm glad you said qualified, because there's a quote on my website, and it says,
Uh,
and we're kind of almost led into this one. It said, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I truly believe that every aspect of my life has led me to this day and this moment in time. I didn't come from money, a wealthy background. I came from a low socioeconomic background, but I understood that education was the great equalizer. And so that's why I have 4 degrees. I have 2 from Southern University and 2 from Louisiana State University, because I understood that in order for me to get ahead in life, I had to get my education. And like I said, I'm this girl from Opelousas, Louisiana. I grew up behind the North Park. Anybody from Southern Louisiana knows about the Opelousas North Park. But I grew up behind the North Park. So when you see us, you would think, oh, that's not where she came from. But it is, because I did what I was supposed to do as far as getting my education, and trying to do right and live right. So
well, I think
that's why that quote's so important to me.
and it highlights the value of providing that opportunity to
Yes.
people. The importance of education as policy matter.
Yes.
How do we open opportunity to all, to everybody? Not just those who happen to have the money to be able to afford it. Move them into workforce issues, move them into jobs, into careers.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's an attack on the Department of Education. I was I was a Head Start child. I went to Head Start and I went to all public schools from K through 12 and college and beyond all of that. It was always public schools and I got a great education. I feel like I'm prepared. But now that why destroy the Department of Education? It makes no sense to me because now you don't have anybody enforcing the IDEA requirements, or you don't have the Pell Grants. That's who would administer the Pell Grants. That's who would administer the student loans. So what's the point? Because you don't want us to be as educated as we are, and because education is the great equalizer, I feel like that's why they're going after education, and it's
Yeah,
wrong.
and I would argue to control the message as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
to the extent there is a message to control it, and not necessarily in a good way, not in a way that serves
no,
all people. That any administration is going to put out some message. So just the fact that you want to put out a message is not wrong in itself, but the way it's done,
yeah.
it's not. Yeah, not really acceptable. So anyway, back to you running. You're running for
Okay.
House District 22. So,
Yes,
when you're running for something, we're supposed to talk about the issues.
yes.
So here's some issues that maybe a little birdie told me that you might care about these. Lowering costs,
Mm-hmm.
access to healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
voting rights,
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure, and
Mm-hmm.
public safety. These are all
Yes.
on a list. So do
So,
you have some place you'd like to jump in there?
well, one thing is left off is veterans and veterans families. That's also
Yeah,
important to me. And
yeah.
if you went on my website, you should have seen that. My
And
dad
your
was.
dad, go ahead. I'm stealing your thunder. My bad.
That's
Go.
okay. My dad was a Vietnam veteran
Yeah.
and he did not come back the man that he left. He did, my mom say, I think my mom or my sister, I don't, they say he did 3 tours. And my sisters can talk, and my brother, they can talk about the man he was when he left, but the man he came back is the man I saw, and he wasn't who he was before. So I was robbed, basically. Or I always say, I when they try to say patriotism and the flag is theirs. No, I sacrificed my father for this country, so I can be patriotic, or I am patriotic. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Just a couple of days ago, I did a podcast with uh, a candidate from the Panhandle, and
Mhm.
she became the girlfriend of a person who deployed
Um,
to Iraq. They met 1 week before he deployed,
oh
and
wow.
then came back, and then they got married, and then he deployed again. And she talked in a very compelling way about the service of the spouse at home, which
Mm-hmm.
being in San Antonio, we're Military City, USA here. We
Mm-hmm.
that's not a new thought to people around here. But you point out maybe the service of the children, who maybe didn't, you didn't choose that, but
No.
nevertheless, you served anyway because you didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's why families are so important to me, and we never want to leave them out because even though the member is doing the service and is away at a war or whatever, the family is here to, usually it's a man, but sometimes it's a woman as well. But the spouse is here trying to hold the family together, trying to make sure that everything is taken care of. And we lose sight of that. And that's why it's so important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. The candidate was Diana Loya, uh,
Okay.
from Dumas, Texas.
Oh,
for
okay.
for whatever that's worth. She and I had a good conversation about my trip through Dumas, which I think surprised her a little bit. But anyway,
Oh, wow.
so veterans, that's an important issue. What's
Yes.
something else we ought to talk about?
Affordability. Um, it's crazy that we are subsidizing these big companies. They refuse to pay a livable wage to their employees. So then we, in turn, have to pay for childcare assistance, housing assistance, subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. All of those things we're paying for. SNAP benefits. We're paying for those because these companies are refusing to pay a livable wage. They are getting all of these tax benefits, and we all know that trickle down economics does not work. It didn't work back then. You mentioned Ronald Reagan earlier. It didn't work then, and it still doesn't work. There is no reason that somebody can buy an island for what, $50 million just for a wedding, but then you can't pay your employees and you're laying off thousands of people at a time. So we need to work on that, the affordability, and we need to work on voting rights. Oh my gosh, that is an issue. They are trying to basically stop women from voting because they know how we usually vote.
You're talking about the Save Act.
Yes, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
SAVE Act. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the president railing against mail-in voting, but he and his family vote by mail.
And voted by mail. Yeah.
So we need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. It needs to be passed. I said it in 24, and we need it even more now, especially with the Supreme Court threatening to cut down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So strike it, and it's
You
just
know, for decades, maybe 100 years, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't know. It's the facts that may doesn't that may not be the facts, but decades that I'm sure of. Our courts leaned on the side of granting the vote.
mhm.
Okay, is it the postmark or is it when it actually arrives? Well, we want people to know their vote counts, so it's the
Yes,
postmark, right? And there's
yes,
so many other examples like that. And now all of a sudden we seem to be leaning the other direction. You could argue the Save Act is poll tax because
it
of
is.
because of the money that people are going to have to spend just in order to be qualified to vote.
Yes.
And poll tax is supposed to be illegal. Here we go again.
And with this Supreme Court, we just don't know. We don't know. I mean, it's sad, but it was like even a question as far as birthright citizenship. I was like, no, surely they're not going to vote for that and uphold his executive order. But you just don't know with them. They've
Yeah,
compromised themselves so much, and
it's not 100% clear, on the topic of birthright citizenship, the the underlying, as I understand it, the really deep philosophical argument that supports birthright citizenship, regardless of the Constitution, which ought to be enough, right?
mhm,
Is that if you don't give citizenship to people who are born in the country, you're going to create an underclass of citizens. And you're going to, you're essentially create in a light way, you're going to create a caste system.
system.
And I just found that such a compelling argument. And, and then if you honor the contributions of immigrants and the difference that immigrants have made over so long.
Well, and I was just about to say that it's crazy how we keep transitioning. I was just going to say, when you think about what you said, we probably already have some form of a caste system because if you think about it, we have we have not provided a pathway to citizenship. So you have a lot of people here living here in fear more now than before, but they never got their citizenship because we haven't provided a clear path to citizenship. Even DACA recipients, they can't become a citizen based on DACA. They have to pay and renew every year. I have a someone and I was asking her where she lived. And I want to tell you that Iowa Colony is in Brazoria County. So CD 22 is composed of Fort Bend County, Brazoria County, and Harris County. So she's in Brazoria, and I asked her to vote for me. And she said, ma'am, I can't vote for you. She said, but my husband can. And she told me, she explained it about how DACA works. And I knew about it, but I never like really researched it until she told me. And so then I started looking. She said, we have to pay so much every year to renew, but her husband is scared for her to go to the store by herself because
Yeah.
of what's going on right now. So I think that we have to find a pathway to citizenship, and it's
Th-
Congress's job to do it. It shouldn't
This
be by
culture
executive order.
this culture of fear is un-American.
It really is.
It's really just that simple. As somebody who came illegally as an adult, I could see there's a debate there about how to handle that.
Yeah.
For the DACA kids, what are we doing? These folks had no say in it. They've been here. It's the
None.
only place many of them, it's the only home they've ever known. The inhumanity of thinking that you can take someone like that, put them on a plane or a bus and take them to a place they've not grown up. Boy, you're going to send me back to Sunday school teaching on
It's
this.
okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so sorry, you're the
Yeah.
guest. I'm gonna try to stop giving sermons here.
No,
Uh,
it's okay.
uh,
It's
all
okay.
right. So voting rights. You're doing some town halls.
Yes, I am. So we had our launch Tuesday. It's the Voting Under Fire Town Hall series and our tour, excuse me. And our next event is in April, and we're gonna have members of the Divine Nine. I don't know if you know what that is, but those are the Divine Nine is composed of Black, uh, um, excuse me, sororities and fraternities. And
Uh,
and I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So we make up the Divine Nine. So we're gonna have members from different sororities and fraternities, basically talking about the role that Divine Nine has in protecting voting rights and helping people to be educated, to get registered, and to vote. I mean, it's one of our responsibilities. So I didn't get to talk to you about this, but why I'm so voting is so important to me. So my grandmother was born in 1905, and she lived during a time when she couldn't vote. And so as a little girl, my mom would drive my grandmother and her friends and elderly people to the polls to vote. And as a little girl, I would accompany her and I would go with them into the poll to help them to vote. And so that was always a big part of my life, the voting and the importance of voting. And when I had my daughter, I made sure that she always came with me to vote. And when she turns 18, she voted and she's been voting ever since. So voting is very important to me. And I just feel that some of us, especially in our community, have lost sight of that and they're not teaching it to the importance of it to their kids. So I believe that the Divine Nine has a role and a responsibility to get the messaging out and to really help people, not just us, but just people to understand the importance of voting and educating them about voting.
So I did not know what the Divine Nine was. Learned something new today. Yes, I
Yes,
did.
you did.
That's cool. I like that. The name fits, by the way. It
Uh-huh.
really that feels like it fits really well. Well, to
It does.
me, voting. Gosh, I think about the first, policy issues aside for our nation's actions in Iraq in the 2000s. I remember so clearly when there were those first elections, or even the second and third elections,
Hmm.
and the Iraqi people would go to the polls and they'd vote and they'd dip their finger in paint, I think it was, as that was the way you made sure they didn't vote twice. And they dip their
Oh.
finger in paint and they'd walk out and they'd hold their finger up to show that they had voted.
Hmm.
People who for decades did not have this
Couldn't.
opportunity to vote, or if they were voting, they all knew that they were just rubber stamping something, right? What a precious right, and a precious right that's under threat
It is. It is.
today. Today.
Hmm.
And, the reaction is not to be quiet about it, not to be passive about it, but to say, this is a precious right. You're not going to take it away from me.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to me because I can't believe that in my lifetime our rights are being threatened. Our voting rights are being threatened. The other thing is I can't believe that my daughter has fewer rights than I had when I was 26. So we're regressing instead of progressing. So we
Mm.
have to stand up. We have to say enough is enough. We're not going to tolerate this. You're not going to take these rights from us. And that's why we need great candidates to run, and we need people to vote, and we need people to be engaged.
And this is why you're doing voting rights town halls. And one of the
Yes.
things I remember about your town hall, they're themed, and one is about veterans, if I
Yes,
remember right.
yes, yes. That one is in May, Veterans Services, because again, we're going to do a breakfast for spouses. Um, because veterans are so important to me. And I actually work with a veterans group, and most of it's a like a coalition, and most of them help house homeless veterans.
So what will you do then as a U.S. representative to work on these issues? That you'd be working on them at a federal level. What will you take from your local experience and take steps in order to try to move the ball forward?
I think the first thing that we need to do as far as veterans are concerned, it's so crazy. You didn't ask me this question, but last time when I ran in 2024, they asked me what committees I want to work on, and I said whatever committee works with veterans and education, those are so important to me. So I would of course want to be on those two committees and work to ensure that our veterans are taken care of. You can't There has to be some mental health training, mental health counseling. There has to be some way for them to transition from thinking I have to kill to I'm in this everyday life. How do and I was talking to one of my fellow council members. He's a veteran, and I was basically talking to him about this. I said we can't expect to train somebody to kill and then say, okay, well, now you ready, you go into regular life. You can't expect that. So he said, what I need to work on is what is the next mission? He said, because they've been trained that you're on a mission. And so then the mission is the mission is to transition and to live a productive life. So I think that we owe it to veterans to come up with programs that help them, not just for housing, but if I'm going to give you this VA loan to buy a home, I need to educate you on all the things that home ownership entails. So those are things that I think that we need to do for our veterans, not just and we need to help them with their medical, with their mental health, all of those things. So those are some of the things that I would want to work on because I find
Y-
them so important.
And you know, the military knows how to do this really well, training. I mean, I would argue that probably, well, maybe that, maybe the fact we've got some technologically advanced things is helpful to the quality of our military, but we have the best trained military in the world.
Yes, yes.
And that the military knows how to train folks. And so, can we, and there are military programs for transition as well. I don't want to sound like there are not. But how do we do better? How do we get into a place where you're not going to see a veteran homeless on the streets? To me, that's one of the most heartbreaking things, to think of someone who served the country and, now can't find a way to have a roof over their head.
And that's all with the transitioning and the mental health. I think a lot of it is mental health. I really do. I just think that we cannot overlook it. And that's why so many veterans are committing suicide or get on drugs because that's how
Mm.
they cope. And so we need to do better. We owe it to veterans to do better. And we really can train to kill, but how do we train just for them to live, go back? Because I don't know if you can ever just go back to regular life, but how do you help with coping with the PTSD and all of that without drugs or without alcohol? So those are things that I think we should work on as a country. And now you're sending more people to another a war and talking about sending them into mountains. When I heard that about the mountains, all I could think about was Vietnam. I mean, we sent our men into the jungles, and look what happened to them. So you're on somebody else's terrain.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
way.
indeed, indeed. Well, the we've covered a lot of ground here. We're
We
coming in for a
did.
landing, as I like to say. But I was told to ask you this question. So
Okay.
your first 100 days as representative, what would be your focus? Veterans,
Affordability.
obviously, and
Veterans, of
affordability.
course.
Yeah,
Veterans
yeah.
affordability. I believe that we need some form of universal health care. The biggest question is, well, how can we pay for it? How can we pay for $1 billion a day for a war? And they're asking for 200 billion more. So we could surely, this is the United States of America, we can surely come up with a good universal health care plan. But of course, we'll need to shore up the Affordable Care Act subsidies and then transition to a universal health care. So that's something that I would love to work with anybody who wants to find solutions to our affordability crisis and our healthcare crisis, because those are and don't forget we have our democracy crisis as well. But the hope is that we can take control in November and put some safeguards in place. So
Well,
those are
I
three
am
things.
I am so glad you said that. And by the way, you were talking about us being on the same page. You pulled that one right out of my mouth because that's where I was going as soon as you said it. And
Yeah.
here's my take on this. How in the world did we get through 4 years without him in office and not put safeguards in
I
place?
don't know.
How did that happen? And so let's get it right this time, and let's get
Yes.
safeguards in place that
Yes. Yes.
protect the precious first principles, key principles of our democracy.
Yes.
Please, Please, I
Yes.
want my kids to keep growing up in a democracy. I want my grandkids to grow up
I agree.
in a
And
democracy.
and I was a speaker at the No Kings rally, and No Kings is it's just the beginning, and it's a way for people to, you know, channel their frustration. But what I told them was, this is the beginning. Now you have to do more. We used to could say, "Well, I voted." You can't say that anymore, because you have to do more than just vote. You have to volunteer for campaigns. You have to talk to your neighbors. A lot of people don't know what's going on. They're not watching the news. All they're doing is looking at their phones. And you know those algorithms, they'll show you what they want you to what you want to see.
Hmm.
And so we have to talk to people. We have to knock on doors. We have to be uncomfortable. Um that's what it's going to take. And what I said was, our democracy is worth it, because it is.
It's precious. It's a
It,
precious gift that we were all given. We didn't have anything to do with creating it, but it was handed
yeah.
to us. It's imperfect, by the way, just for the record. And,
Yeah, of
there've
course
been
it
a lot of
is.
imperfections along the way. But what I'm trying to remember what movie I saw, or maybe it was a book that said it may be really imperfect, but it is the best system in the world.
It
And
is.
and
It
and
is.
and we need to keep it. So, my last question for everybody, which you already, again, once again, you did it again. You've kind of
I'm
answered
sorry.
already. No, it's a compliment. No, absolutely no apology needed. But maybe you can add one more thing to the list. Your advice for people who are watching what's going on in our state, in our country, know it's wrong or don't like it, want to act, but don't know how to start. What would you tell them?
I, I would say, like, First Lady Michelle Obama, do something. You could write postcards, because some people don't like to talk to people. So you could write postcards, you could do text messaging. Look up candidates, see if they align with your values, and just talk to them. I've had people call me, I've had people send me emails, and I love talking to people. So talk to the candidates, see if they align with your values. And if they do, there's something you can do, even if it's making a donation, or, like I said, writing, doing phone banking, writing postcards. All of those things help. You have to feel like you've done something. And you can run for local office. If you feel inclined, you can run for local office. Local office, that's we affect your everyday life more than anybody else, because we're going to decide on your roads. We're going to decide. We are a zone city in Iowa Colony, so we have to decide how our community looks as far as developments and all of those things. So if you have some skills, you can run for office as well. So there is always something to do, where you're doing something and you're not feeling hopeless. Because if you just watch the news, you're gonna feel hopeless.
Well, and you are so much channeling or maybe talking about my guest again from 2 days ago, Diana Loya. This was exactly her speech. She said that, I'm not political in nature. I thought I kind of put myself in one category without really asking why.
Mm-hmm.
And but then she's been watching what's been going on. She's an educator, and she's been watching what's going on in education. And she realized the way she fixes this is to get elected and go to Austin and fix it.
Yes, yes, yes,
And so that is absolutely one way to do it. And then I will add to what you just said that if you don't know how to connect with the people that you could write postcards for candidates,
yes,
just look for a group that's like-minded that hangs out.
yes.
One of my first guests here in San Antonio, Martha Spinks, she's a community builder. She started,
Mm-hmm.
a Thursday evening thing that now a whole bunch of people show up to, and that's how I meet
Mm-hmm.
folks. And that's how others meet folks. And so do that, and then do what you said and get involved.
Yes.
Marquetta,
And
is there
can I just
anything? Yeah, this is our wrap up. So this is your
well,
chance. Take it.
I was just gonna say, and there are clubs. There are clubs, and
Yes,
clubs
there are.
always want people, and they give you guidance, they give you training, they'll help you. So that's another way to get involved. And I'm glad you said that, because I thought about Indivisible. I thought about um, the different counties, they have clubs as well. So there's always a way to get involved. You just have to reach for it. And call. If you don't know, call your local party and ask them what clubs are in your area, and they'll give you a list of clubs, and you can see which one you think you'll fit with.
And the other way you can do that is to visit our website, speakusa.org. You
Yes.
set me up for
There you
that one for sure.
go.
You did. So, Marquetta, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. We need people like you representing our residents in our country. Everybody go check out Marquetta's website. I'm going to do this to wrap up. Marquetta Greene-Scott. That's Marquette, Green, Greene Scott. Marquetta Greene-Scott. Look up her campaign site.
Yes,
You'll
yes.
find lots
Thank
of good
you.
you find lots of good reasons to vote for her. So, Marquetta, again, thank you so much. I want to ask our viewers and our listeners, what did you learn about our democracy today? There's so many things that you can do. You can, in fact, learn more at our website at speakusa.org, including organizations that you can connect to, that you can support. Our mission is to help you learn, connect, give, and speak up. So
Mhm.
as you go away from this podcast episode, please remember to go speak for the USA. Thank you, Marquetta.
Thank you, Cliff. It was a pleasure.